There's a moment when someone walks into a room and you know immediately whether they're a threat, an ally, or prey. Most people miss it. They're too busy talking, too busy performing, too busy trying to be seen. But Machiavelli would have watched. He would have noticed the micro-signals, the tells, the invisible patterns that people broadcast without knowing it. Because in his world, reading people wasn't a skill, it was survival. Today, I'm going to teach you exactly how he would dissect anyone within seconds. Not with guesswork, not with intuition, with cold, surgical precision. These are psychological tactics that strip away the masks people wear. They show you exactly who you're dealing with. Because the person who can read the room controls the room. And the person who can read people controls their fate. Tactic 1. Watch their feet, not their face. Most people study faces. Machiavelli would study feet. Why? Because faces lie. People practice their smiles, rehearse their expressions, train their eyes to hide discomfort. But feet? Feet never learned to act. When someone's uncomfortable, their feet point toward the exit. When they're lying, their feet shuffle or freeze. When they're attracted to someone, their feet angle toward them without conscious thought. When they feel superior, they plant wide. When they feel threatened, they retreat into smaller stances. This isn't theory. This is biology. The feet connect to the most primitive part of the brain, the part that decides fight, flight, or freeze before the conscious mind even processes what's happening. So while everyone else is trying to decode facial expressions, you're reading their real intentions through their foundation. Next time you're in a meeting, look down. The person whose feet are angled toward the door. They want out. The one whose feet mirror yours. They're aligned with you. The one whose feet are locked in place. They're hiding something. The feet speak the truth. The mouth refuses to tell. Tactic 2. Measure their reaction speed. Machiavelli understood that genuine emotion moves fast. Fake emotion needs time to construct. So he would test people by saying something unexpected and measuring how quickly they responded. Real surprise happens instantly. Fake surprise requires a half-second delay, while the brain constructs the appropriate reaction. Real anger flashes immediately. Performed anger builds slowly, dramatically. Real confusion shows up as immediate stillness. Fake confusion comes with rehearsed head tilts and exaggerated expressions. Here's how you use this. Drop an unexpected statement and count the milliseconds. I heard you were considering leaving the company. Watch their face. If the shock appears instantly, it's real. If there's a pause before the reaction, they already knew. If they respond too quickly with words, they prepared for this conversation. The person who reacts at natural speed is being honest. The person who's too fast or too slow is playing a game. And once you know someone's playing a game, you can start winning it. Tactic 3. Study their baseline, then watch for breaks. Before Machiavelli would negotiate with anyone, he would observe them in neutral situations. How do they normally stand? How do they usually speak? What's their natural rhythm? Because you can't spot the lie until you know what their truth looks like. Everyone has a baseline, their normal patterns of behavior when they're comfortable. Some people naturally speak fast. Others are naturally slow. Some gesture a lot. Others barely move. But when someone breaks from their baseline, that's when you know something's shifted. The naturally calm person who suddenly starts fidgeting. They're nervous about something. The naturally animated person who goes still. They're calculating. The fast talker who slows down. They're choosing their words carefully. The slow speaker who speeds up. They're trying to get past something quickly. This is your roadmap to deception. First, learn their normal. Then watch for the abnormal. Those breaks in pattern, that's where the truth lives. Tactic 4. Listen for what they don't say. Machiavelli was a master of silence. Not just his own silence, but the silence of others. He knew that what people avoid saying is often more revealing than what they do say. When someone describes a situation and skips over certain details, they're protecting something. When they talk about everyone except one person, that person is significant. When they explain everything except the timing matters. When they justify everything except their real motivation, the motivation is what you need to understand. Listen for the gaps. The job interview, where they mention every previous role except one, that's where the problem is. The relationship story, where they talk about everything except how it ended. That's where the pain lives. The business pitch, where they cover every detail except the risks, that's where they're vulnerable. Machiavelli would say, the most important information is always the information they don't want to give you. So stop focusing on what they're saying and start cataloging what they're not saying. That's where their secrets hide. Tactic 5. Watch how they treat those with no power. This is Machiavelli's ultimate character test. Anyone can be charming to their boss, polite to their equals, respectful to those who can help them. But how do they treat the waiter, the receptionist, the person who can do nothing for them? That's who they really are. The person who's rude to service workers but charming to executives. They're calculating every interaction based on what they can gain. The person who treats everyone the same regardless of status. They operate from genuine character. The person who's especially kind to those who can't help them. They understand that power dynamics change, and they're playing a longer game. Watch this carefully. The way someone treats people who have no power over them is the way they'll treat you once they have power over you. It's a preview of who they become when the mask comes off. Tactic 6. Test their consistency across time. Machiavelli never trusted a single interaction. He watched patterns over time, because anyone can perform for a day, a week, even a month. But character shows up in consistency. Pay attention to how their story changes. The person whose background gets more impressive every time they tell it, they're embellishing. The person whose timeline changes depending on who's asking, they're hiding something. The person whose values change based on who's in the room, they have no real values. But also watch for consistent patterns. The person who's always exactly 5 minutes late, they don't respect other people's time. The person who always has an excuse, they don't take responsibility. The person who always finds fault in others, they lack self-awareness. Consistency reveals character. Inconsistency reveals strategy. Both are useful information, but you need to know which one you're dealing with. Tactic 7. Notice their relationship with truth. People have different relationships with truth. Some are pathologically honest, others are casually dishonest. Most live somewhere in between. But Machiavelli knew how to spot each type quickly. Listen to how they talk about small things. The person who lies about traffic being the reason they're late will lie about bigger things when it suits them. The person who exaggerates minor achievements will misrepresent major ones. The person who can't admit small mistakes won't take responsibility for large failures. But also notice their comfort with uncomfortable truths. The person who can acknowledge their own weaknesses is usually honest about their strengths. The person who can admit when they don't know something is usually reliable. Reliable when they claim they do know something. Truth-tellers have a different energy than performers. They're comfortable with silence after they speak because they don't need to convince you of anything they just shared what is. Liars keep talking, explaining, justifying, because they need to make you believe what isn't. Tactic 8. Observe their response to stress. Stress strips away pretense. When pressure hits, people revert to their core programming. So Machiavelli would create small moments of stress and watch how people responded. Some people get angry when stressed, they blame others, raise their voice, look for someone to punish. Some people get quiet when stressed, they withdraw, calculate, plan their next move. Some people get frantic when stressed, they talk fast, move quickly, try to control everything at once. None of these responses are good or bad, but they tell you everything about how this person will behave. Behave when things get difficult. And things always get difficult. The person who stays calm under pressure is either very disciplined or has experience with crisis. The person who panics under minor stress will collapse under major pressure. The person who gets aggressive when challenged will be impossible to work with when stakes are high. Watch how they handle small frustrations, a delayed flight, a computer glitch, a misunderstanding. That's how they'll handle major setbacks. Tactic 9. Study their questions. Machiavelli knew that the questions people ask reveal more about them than the answers they give. Because questions show you what they're thinking about, what they're worried about, what they want to know. The person who asks about money first is motivated by financial security. The person who asks about recognition is driven by ego. The person who asks about process is detail-oriented or controlling. The person who asks about people is either genuinely caring or politically calculating. But also notice what they don't ask. The job candidate who never asks about growth opportunities might not be planning to stay long. The business partner who doesn't ask about risks might not be thinking strategically. The friend who never asks about your problems might not actually care about your well-being. Smart questions show you intelligence. Selfish questions show you motivation. Missing questions show you blind spots or hidden agendas. Tactic 10. Watch their energy management. Energy is finite. How people choose to spend theirs tells you what they value most. Some people save their energy for work and have nothing left for relationships. Some people pour everything into their image and have no substance underneath. Some people invest their energy in learning and growing. Others waste it on drama and gossip. Watch where their energy goes when they think no one's paying attention. Do they light up when talking about their work or when complaining about their problems? Do they get animated discussing ideas or only when gossiping about people? Do they seem most alive when helping others or when advancing themselves? This isn't about judging their choices. It's about understanding their priorities, because their energy allocation is their value system in action. Tactic 11. Test their boundaries. Everyone has boundaries, but not everyone enforces them. Machiavelli would probe gently to see where people's lines were and whether they'd defend them. Start small, show up 5 minutes late, interrupt them once, ask for a small favor, make a mild joke at their expense. How do they respond? The person who lets small boundary violations slide will let big ones slide too. The person who corrects you immediately but kindly has healthy boundaries. The person who doesn't react but stores resentment is passive-aggressive. The person who overreacts to minor things is either insecure or has been hurt before. Boundaries tell you everything about someone's relationship with power, both their own and others. Weak boundaries make people easy to manipulate. Rigid boundaries make them difficult to work with. Healthy boundaries make them reliable partners. Tactic 12. Notice their relationship with time. Time is the most honest measure of priority. How people manage time shows you what they really care about, regardless of what they claim to care about. The person who's always late doesn't respect other people's time. The person who's always early is either anxious or very disciplined. The person who's exactly on time has good self-management. The person whose timing varies based on who they're meeting is calculating the relationship value, but also watch how they talk about time. Do they always seem rushed? They're probably disorganized or overcommitted. Do they seem to have all the time in the world? They either have no real responsibilities or they're very good at managing them. Time patterns are personality patterns. Chronic lateness is chronic disrespect. Chronic rushing is chronic poor planning. Chronic availability might mean chronic lack of boundaries. Tactic 13. Study their stories. Everyone tells stories about themselves, their past, their experiences, their relationships. Machiavelli would listen not just to what the stories said, but to how they told them. Notice who's the hero in their stories. If they're always the victim, they don't take responsibility. If they're always the hero, they lack self-awareness. If they're always the supporting character, they might lack confidence or self-worth. Notice what role other people play. Are others always obstacles, supporters, or victims? This shows you how they see relationships as competitions, collaborations, or rescue operations. Notice what they emphasize. Do they focus on what they accomplished or what they overcame? Do they highlight their intelligence, their luck, or their hard work? Do they remember details about people or just about outcomes? Stories are identity. How someone tells their story is how they see themselves, and how they see themselves is how they'll behave. Tactic 14. Watch their recovery time. Everyone makes mistakes, faces setbacks, deals with disappointment. But Machiavelli knew that resilience was the ultimate predictor of future success. So he would watch how quickly people recovered from difficulties. The person who bounces back immediately might be resilient, or might be avoiding processing what happened. The person who takes forever to recover might be thoughtful, or might lack emotional strength. The person who recovers but becomes bitter learned the wrong lesson. The person who recovers and becomes wiser learned the right one. But recovery isn't just about time, it's about adaptation. Does the person who fails adjust their strategy or just try harder with the same approach? Do they blame others or examine their own role? Do they become more careful or more reckless? How someone handles failure tells you everything about how they'll handle future challenges. And everyone faces future challenges. The integration. Becoming unreadable while reading others. Here's what Machiavelli understood that most people miss. These tactics work both ways. Once you know how to read people, you also know how to control what they read from you. While you're studying their feet, control yours. While you're measuring their reaction time, master your own. While you're watching their baseline, perfect yours. While you're listening for their gaps, eliminate yours. The person who can read others while remaining unreadable holds all the cards. You see their motivations while hiding your own. You understand their weaknesses while concealing yours. You predict their moves while keeping yours invisible. This isn't about becoming manipulative. It's about becoming strategic. In a world where everyone's trying to read you, being unreadable is protection. In a world where few people understand others deeply, reading people clearly is power, the final truth. Most people go through life hoping others will understand them. Machiavelli went through life understanding others first. That's why he wrote the rules instead of following them. These 14 tactics aren't just observation techniques, they're competitive advantages. While others are guessing about motivations, you'll know. While others are hoping for the best, you'll be preparing for reality. While others are being surprised by behavior, you'll have seen it coming. But remember, knowledge without action is just sophisticated speculation. Use what you learn. Test what you observe. Apply what you discover. Because the person who can read people but doesn't act on that information is just an informed victim. The game is already being played. The only question is whether you're playing it consciously or unconsciously. Machiavelli would tell you, consciousness is the only way to win. Start watching, start reading, start winning.